that sort of, I gather, led to this career as an expert, side career as an expert on Amazon, which is quite an interesting topic. And I've been fascinated. Ken pushed me into seeing the Ryan's e-newsletter called Tech Infused Retailer. It's fascinating. It gives really honest, unconventional insight on Amazon, on e-commerce, on trends, without all the hype that some of the journalists give us. So with that said, I just want to thank Ryan for being so incredibly nice and not being upset that the club kicked him out because of an apparel wardrobe malfunction. I came here with jeans.
That's what we're going to call it.
So we really appreciate you going through all the trouble and even sort of rushing through lunch or looking at your chicken there. But I really do want to give us a chance to see what you have to say and forward and backwards.
Awesome. Thank you for your time, everyone. So I think this presentation might actually be two, because the first thing is that I walked into the beautiful entrance, the south side entrance. I had jeans on, I did have the blazer on, and I had Adidas shoes, which is a very hot brand relative to Nike and everyone else. And he said, you know what, you're going to need pants. I said, this was my Halloween costume. He didn't laugh at all, so I knew he was serious. I went into that store and I bought new pants, and then I came out and I said, okay, I'm all ready. And he said, you're also going to need shoes. And I was like, well, then why didn't you do that the first time? So I got the shoes, then I came up here, we tried to put in the MacBook Pro. That did not work. Then we brought out 3 different dongles. That did not work. Then we tried the phone. That did not work. And luckily we have Gary's surface here. So luckily we have a presentation.
Oh my goodness.
So I apologize if anything screws up.
Yeah, thank you, Gary. Thank you for buying all those clothes.
Yeah.
Right, you should get a refund.
When I turn around, just make sure that you don't see the tags, because I am going to return them. Okay. Yeah. So today I'm going to talk about Amazon, but Peter was nice enough to say that I can expand a little bit outside of Amazon. So we're going to talk about Amazon in some detail. I'm happy to talk about Amazon in further detail a little bit later. But I want to take a step back and talk about the consumer as well as the retailer, not just Amazon, and then we'll relate it back. With that said, I think the media today, no offense, is driven by things like this. They're driven by things like, VR, virtual reality, augmented reality, which there's probably some credence to augmented reality, but they are driven by the big headline things. And the fact of the matter is,
If the surface would work.
the fact of the matter is, even though we may see virtual reality on the New York City subway in 2016, the large percentage of people really haven't adopted it. If you look at that typical bell curve, you're going to see the early adopters of VR and then true adoptions and things like the smartphone, the things that we need to focus on. I think it's fine to talk about things and start to pre-plan about big tech that you think may influence you. However, it's not always influencing you. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about today is focusing on just the basics of what the consumer's looking for and what they're doing today. I want to ask a quick question. You can't see just because of the reflection, so I'll call it out. Just by a show of hands, how many of you think the following 5 options are the biggest thing impacting retail today? And I'm going to go through each one of them. The first one is virtual reality. The second one is augmented reality. So for those of you that don't know the difference, virtual reality is the made-up world. Augmented reality is placing something within the current world in front of you. So if I was to take my phone and I knew I was going to buy that IKEA chair over there, it would place it into the actual image for me. So virtual reality, fake, augmented reality, the world in front of you. The third thing is marketplaces. also known as Amazon third-party sellers. So the ability to sell anything like eBay, Wayfair, Jet, etc. The fourth thing is social media. And then the fifth thing is in-store kiosks and magic mirrors. So how many of you think today, $1 there of all the brands we have, predominant portion of the deliveries are cash on delivery, which is all handled by Amazon, so we technically don't see it. The fees are actually phenomenal relative to the US because they're just trying to get the ecosystem bubbling and going. What's interesting there is over time, actually this is a great segue, if you look in 2014, roughly 40-ish%, low 40s, was sold by third parties. So guys like us, direct to the consumer, as opposed to shipping it to them on a weekly basis and then shipping it out. That's completely inverted, and it's almost 80-20 in India. So they're starting their marketplace before they're buying stuff direct. Remember, he started here by buying books direct from guys like me, and then opening up the marketplace. Because you saw that eBay was what he needs to replicate because it's inventory light, and Alibaba was even better. I don't think you should pay attention to any of this. I just think you should start to pay attention to the fact that physical stores is now showing up. Is the first thing. They've obviously got their bookstore, which means very little business, but then they've got the Whole Foods that just started popping into this quarter. The second thing is if you look from 2016 or you pull this back further, they're trying to get less and less out of the physical goods sales and more into the services. He knows that over the long term, as he builds up his grocery sales, he wants to do more in services because it's more margin rich. So I think he's setting himself up. Now, everybody, you're not going to hear this sound because we didn't set it up, but everybody thinks that Amazon can do no wrong. And I bring this video up maybe because I think we need to be reminded. They do screw up, and they screw up quite a bit. This is a child who's talking to Alexa, and he's asking for a song to be played, and then Alexa starts asking if he wants to buy porn, and all this X-rated material. It's quite funny, but I keep that in to remind people there are ways to work with Amazon. There are ways to realize that they are humans as well. So, I talked about the disruptors. Now I'm going to jump into the current state of retail. How are we doing on pace? Moving too fast, too slow?
You're fine.
Okay. All right, so we're going to talk about the current state of retail, then I'm going to talk about the consumer, and then I'm going to give you some overview of connected environments. So, let's ask, again, by show of hands. Number one, what keeps you up at night? Declining store traffic. Number two, declining retail sales. Number three, shift to e-commerce and m-commerce. Number four, advertising. Number five, lack of Ambien refills. Number one, show of hands, declining store traffic. What keeps you up at night?
All of you.
My wife.
Are we only supposed to choose one?
Yes, you're only allowed to choose one. Number two, declining retail sales. No one. This is a smart audience. Number three, shift to e-commerce and m-commerce. Okay. Number four, advertising. Okay. All right.
Number 5.
Well, try not to ask that one. So, the way I like to think of retail is in a series of spheres, and for those of you that can't see it, it's advertising on one side and lead generation on the other side, digital on the bottom, stores on the top. And why do I go through this really quickly? All of these things start to build themselves in. On the non-digital side, you got direct mail and catalog. On the other side, you got pay-per-click and email and display and viral. And we don't need to care about exactly what's in those. All we need to know is that directly in the middle, that impacts across all, is things like mobile, beacons, Internet of Things, all of that type of stuff. And what I think it's done is it's changed this world dramatically. I'm going to speed up a little bit because we don't have a ton of time. You've got a courier here in Singapore that's doing deliveries for 3 different services with 3 different phones. You've got a Japanese guy on the subway here. He's got his USB mouse plugged into his Android phone. You've got a walking texting lane. You have
Oh, wow.
You've got
What is
that is.
We need them here.
We need
Yeah, we really need them.
I'm sorry.
Never heard of that.
I'm sorry ahead of time because you're probably talking about people like me. I'm sorry about that. Down here, we've got Honolulu, this is very recent, this was last month. They are now doing a fine if you're crossing the street looking down at your phone. And we've got walk, run, text upstairs. And then we've got lovely Instagram, pre-Instagram, a Nokia candy bar phone attached to a phone, or a camera. Why is all this happening? What's driving all this change? The first thing that's very obvious, 80% of the world by 2020 will have smartphones, so everyone's connected. Second thing is it's very easy to scale and start a business. My business, for the way that we service marketplace businesses for Amazon and stuff like that, I've never even bought a server. You know what my bill is per month? It's roughly $700 to run servers at Amazon to fuel my entire business, which has roughly 100 million in sales, retail sales on Amazon's platform, Jets, etc. $700. That's crazy. Number 3, distribution. Everyone's connected, everyone's got smartphones, everyone's got tablets, we can impact anyone or talk to anyone. Number 4, on demand. So the 1099 employees that are driving us around in Ubers, Lyfts, the ones that are working for TaskRabbit building our IKEA furniture. And what's that doing? It's creating a customer that is a lot more demanding and very difficult to follow. You've got 69% of them this coming holiday researching online and purchasing in store, 53% who are researching in store and then purchasing online, and then 43% who are wanting to pick it up after they researched online. It's very difficult. You've got m-commerce growing at a rate that e-commerce never saw. You've got countries who are a lot more sophisticated than us and a lot more mature than us in terms of mobile and how they're purchasing. Japan's over 50% already. China doesn't share their information, but we think they're closer to 72%. That's how they're shopping in other countries. It's coming to us. I'm telling you, it just may take a long, long time. What's the craziest consumer look like? The craziest consumer would be someone who rises with their phone, opens up their phone, browses our website, then goes in and commutes. And they're now moving throughout the world. They're still browsing, or they're coming back. Then they're going to work. They're switching to their work laptop or work desktop. Then they may, at lunch, go and visit the store. They may or may not bring that original mobile phone they had before. And then they're going home at night and then laying in bed and bringing a tablet into that entire customer experience. That's crazy.
But you gotta talk about attribution at one point. Or is that
can.
impossible now to define?
It is. It's actually better than it was before. I can talk about it. All of this and that crazy customer has changed everything we talk about. Yes, we still talk about comps, but everything else that we talk about is a lot different, a lot more tech-driven. I will agree, store traffic is declining at a rate that's unprecedented. However, I do believe it might be plateauing a bit. Granted, it could be the scale of this graph. However, from 2010 to 2017, we have seen a dramatic drop.
56% drop in 7 years?
Yep.
Wow.
With that said, let's all lift our heads up. Retail sales have remained positive, believe it or not. So they're still buying. They're just shifting where they're buying and how they're buying it. Oftentimes when I ask that previous question, the audience question, a lot of people throw their hands up in strong retail sales or declining retail sales. But keep in mind, it has stayed the same. Let's talk about the consumer. 5 choices again. Most annoying word in retail. The first one is omni-channel. The second one is private label. Third one is MSRP, so manufacturer suggested retail price. Number 4 is mobile first, or the new one, mobile only. Apparently we closed all our stores, we closed off our desktop sites, and we only do mobile now, but whatever. And then number 5, millennials. All right, so number 1, omni-channel. Show of hands,
Show of hands for what?
my people. Most annoying word in retail.
Yes.
Okay. Number 2, private label. 3, MSRP. 4, mobile first, mobile only. Number 5, millennials.
What about everyday low prices?
That's a pretty terrible one too. I mean, I think it's number 6. Okay, so remember we're talking about the consumers. I know, Peter, I'm giving you so much information in this, and I apologize, but I think it's worthwhile, and you guys can read it and love it and hate
Thank
it.
you.
What I love to do is look at the consumer. So prior to what I'm doing now, I ran the department store strategy for Hudson's Bay, Lord & Taylor, and Saks.
Oh, boy.
And what I loved doing is starting to see where the consumer's shifting. And some of them are shifting because of higher housing. Some of them are shifting because of more expensive health. Some of them are shifting because we outsourced all apparel production over the last 30 years overseas, so we naturally killed ourselves and brought the prices down. If you strip away housing and health, it's a very dire picture. That furnishings has gone from 3.2% to 2.4%. So 2.4% of that consumer's wallet, excluding housing and health, is being spent on retail dollars related to furnishings. In the apparel world, it's even more dire. I think you need to keep this in mind when you're thinking about the consumer, where the shift of spend is happening. The customer also, depending upon type of product, across the five different steps in when we purchase: discovery, trial, purchase, pickup, and return, has a in-store preference that varies for each one of them. So on the high end, apparel and accessories, the customer, roughly 60% of the customers prefer to be in-store and to shop in-store as part of the discovery.
Yeah.
I don't need to go through all of it, but furniture, it's obvious, they purchase, they typically want to do it in store. Computer and electronics, we saw at Best Buy, they got impacted first with e-commerce. Furniture pickup on the lower end, return on the lower end. With that said, there are some crazy experiences that are starting to get developed. You can't see this, I apologize, I would have made the screen much bigger if I knew what the setting was. I asked the audience, and I asked a group through my blog and through my newsletters and stuff, and I said, what do you think is the number one thing that no one will ever shop online? And the answer was perfume and cologne. We found a company that essentially goes through a series of questions called Hawthorne for Men. They sell cologne online. They ask me what my diet is. They ask me what I'm currently owning, or what I'm currently wearing. They ask me what my day job is, how often I exercise, what drink of choice. I wanted to impress you guys, so I picked whiskey. They ask me all of this stuff. And long story short, they end up getting to a final sheet that says, you know, we went through our algorithm, and here's what we come up with. This is what we suggest. It's $100. And a lot of people may say, well, I'm just going to try it because I never smelled it. However, they offer free shipping, free returns. People are intrigued enough to believe that this was a true personalized recommendation engine that suggested this scent for them. It's $100. If I know I can return it, why don't I give it a shot?
That's a Zappos formula.
There you go. There you go. Let's talk about those 5 particular pieces, but let's also talk about it in terms of age. So there's your lovely millennials and your seniors across each one of those 5. So no surprises here, seniors across the top. The only weird thing about this is what came out was Gen X was the only one who said that they wanted to return at the lowest rate back to in-store. Keep your customer in mind. No customer is the same. I ran a survey via various channels, roughly 2,000 people, so you can say it's statistically real or not. I mean, we don't need to debate that. And all I said was, give me 3 of your favorite words about a brick experience, and 3 of your favorite words about a digital experience. And what's interesting is largely they are the same. There are some pieces that come out. The first one, leisure activity. They said in some way, shape, or form that they love doing it as a leisure activity. When you start to talk about brick, the number one thing I saw was the ability to quickly understand exactly what's out there. You walk into a shoe store like I did this afternoon, knowing that I was improperly dressed, I quickly saw what was available. Second thing is, on the digital side, what they said was they love the endless aisle and the ability to quickly understand what price comparisons are to other sites. And then it started to move in, and it started to bring about ones that you're familiar with. No joke, familiarity, comfort, the fact that digital site is open 24/7, 365. They both said instant gratification, personalized experience. That's that one that came back to us through the Cologne trial feel on the brick side. And it keeps coming in, free shipping, free returns, high touch, user-generated reviews, visual interaction environment. So I use these answers to come up with examples of the various things that I think we should talk about. The first thing I want to note, though, is creating intrigue in a sea of content today. So this is today. This is how much crap is created via Instagram, Facebook, everything in the world that people are looking at and paying attention to. So when we talk about shopping, what should we focus on? The first thing is that we start to look at the smartphone and where a search is done. They're done on Google, and they're largely done in Safari, but Safari is tied to Google for the most part. So a lot of searches are done in Google. That's just a general. Let's flip to the shopping side, though. If you've got a customer who's looking for product, 55% go to Amazon first. It's crazy. It's crazy. Amazon is the Rotten Tomatoes of movies for product. The others, Walmart and Target, that's all other retails. They do get 19%. Granted, this is one of the surveys. They've largely all been roughly in that area.
Is that through apps or what?
So I don't have a mix of that, but the number one retail app is Amazon. So I would think their penetration is relatively large, but they've never given an indication.
Do you notice a difference between smartphone and, let's say, laptop or desktop?
Yeah. I actually have those stats. I can get them for you. I don't know them off the top of my head.
But there is a difference.
There is. There is. Okay. Advertising.
So why do you think that's the case? Why are people going to Amazon on using
I think because the desktop doesn't follow you into stores. I think there's a large percentage of people that are doing the showrooming.
So you go into a store, you want to get a price compare, you click on Amazon, see what Amazon is on.
I think there's a lot
Yeah,
of
I did
people
that.
doing
I did that
that.
2 weeks ago. Yeah. I wanna make sure.
Advertising, so it's crazy. Like here is, you can't see them, but this is all the guys that we're used to, like the Verizons and the NBCs and all those guys, and look how big Alphabet, which is Google, and Facebook are now as a percentage of your ad dollars, gross ad dollars. Tech has taken over. And if you look at this, I just did a sample Google snapshot of, if I type in mattress, I got ad count, ready? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The entire front page on the desktop is 8 ads. Now I do it on the mobile, and that's the full screen, that's not the 10, that's the 8, but it's 2. It's all ads. If you're not there, you're not going to be talked about.
By the way, are all these mattress companies making money, or is it just fashionable for 25-year-old entrepreneurs to start a mattress company?
So I don't know.
They like to sleep a lot.
If I was to speculate, I know the hay and needle guys, Tough and Needle guys very well. They're based out of Phoenix. They're kind of the pre-Casper guys. They're making money. I know they are, because they try to get a license for them. Casper, I think, is running high off of venture capital money, if I was to assume. And then some of the other guys, they're getting the Legacy, Sleep Comforts, and Sleepies, and all those guys to start doing their own mattress. So I don't know how many of them are going to survive. I do think the model in which Tuft and Casper and some of these guys are selling, non-brick and mortar, works. And it's intriguing. Okay, so what are customers using smartphones for? If you look, and let's just forget about the age, who really cares? But when you truly are using them for shopping, it's pretty self-explanatory. Obtaining store locations, checking and comparing prices, shopping and browsing. Number 4, read reviews. Read reviews. Why do I focus on reviews so much? Because for whatever reason, 75% of us in this room trust strangers and will only buy stuff on Amazon if it's got a review. You can either know who the hell it is, or know that I probably paid to get that review put up there.
Yeah.
It's nuts. It's absolutely nuts. I can show you data where I do almost 2x the amount of business on an Amazon product with a 1-star review versus a 0 review. No one wants to be an experiment. Even if you have a 1-star review, you're going to sell more than having no reviews. Private label really annoys me because everyone talks about it like it's some brand new thing. Fact of the matter is we've lived with private label for a long, long time, and I think we will continue to live with private label. There's always a customer that doesn't want to pay the premium for a branded product, and there always will be. You look at the different groups, department stores, drug chains, electronics, supermarkets, big box. When I ran strategy at department stores, what was the #1 thing we did? We went to the buyers and said, stop buying branded and push more private label in. It's just this thing, this seesaw that just keeps coming in. So get over it, it's going to be here forever. Speed up.
And if you want to take a break and eat.
No, we got too much in here. I want you guys to see it. I want you to see it all, and you're probably going to say at the end, man, that kid is on crack or something. But I want to make sure you see it all. So I pulled all the platforms together to basically point out the 3 things that we need to be focused on. You've got guys like Seamless and Caviar who are phenomenal. They'll exceed restaurant pickup and in-store calling. You've got other guys like Happy Hour and Cover. Happy Hour, you can set up a happy hour with any of your friends at any point in time with a select group of bars. And then you've got the Instacarts, the Delivs, the Google Expresses, the Amazons who are focused on the logistics side. All 3 of them, or excuse me, all 4 of those groups are all providing 3 things. The first thing is limitless choice. You can get whatever the heck you want. Second thing is, we don't like talking to people. We like to do our own thing if it's provided to us. We like to do self-help. We need the tools to do it ourselves. The third thing is that it's immediate, that it comes very quickly. The interesting thing is that we've been focused on the same type of stuff for a long, long time. Sears in 1988 had the endless scroll of 1888 at 1,100 pages. Number 2, we were selling everything from underwear to houses in this 1,100 pages. Number 3, we always get guaranteed satisfaction. Second thing, we always said that we would allow you to omni-channel it, remember? Phone, in-store, pickup, so it's always been a part of the delivery model. Second thing is we've always been able to globally ship, and then the third thing is we provided next-day delivery back then. We provided self-help with swatches, right? We even had a majority of the population within 5 miles of railroad to pick it up themselves. So look at it in the catalog, pick it up at the depot. Let's talk about the retailers and the connected environments. What I think is interesting is, again, back to the wallet shift, now we're shifting over to the retailers. You can see from 2012 all the way up through 2015, 2016, where the sales shifted. Obviously, internet retailers, 13%. Believe it or not, vehicles and parts was the highest. And then you've got my old friends, department stores down 5. We all think he was terrible. They did make quite a bit of progress. Ride sharing now exceeds, for business customers, taxis and car rentals. Very soon it will exceed the combined total.
Does that include Lyft?
That is ride sharing, yeah. So it's Lyft, it's Line, it's Juno, all of those guys. The second thing is now remember he wanted to bring down the cost of running a car, but look what he's doing now. He's got something that's impacting mass transit. Who knows this guy? Ma. Yes, Jack Ma, Alibaba. My favorite quote I've ever seen related to e-commerce. I hope 15 years later people forget about e-commerce because they think it's like electricity. What he's done is pretty amazing himself. Walmart, Bentonville, the run to Bentonville back in the 50s and the 60s, more so 60s. Look how quickly he's going to exceed the total volume that's run through his platform and how quickly he's done it. Orange is Alibaba, orange is Walmart. Okay, our famous guy that we want to talk about today.
Jeff.
Mr. Jeff. This quote to me is very interesting. In the old world, you devoted 30% of your time to building a great service and 70% of your time shouting about it. In the new world, that inverts. What I think is amazing about what Amazon's truly done is it's largely a logistics play, and I think they're morphing into more of a services play. But really what they did was they folded the cost of free shipping into the cost of the product. And a lot of you will say, oh, well, that's not entirely true, because we do see product that is quite cheap relative to the competition. However, 51% of what Amazon sold in the last quarter was from a third-party vendor, a company like myself, where they push the cost of shipping down to us through the service fees they charge us. So I would still argue that the impact flowed down to the wholesalers and the guys that make the product. 1994, they were within one state for a 1 to 2 day run for an Amazon distribution center. 2014, it was 40. 2016, it was 48. 2017, it's 48 in the Continental, and there is DCs in Alaska and in Hawaii. We also know that here in New York, you've got access to them within an hour to 2 hours. They've already exceeded the clothing of TJX, so they are the largest in clothing now. And we all know what they're doing about grocery. 8 months ago when I talked about Amazon coming after grocery, everyone thought no, because it was low margin. However, it's also the most we spend as consumers. Grocery is where we spend the most of our wallet. I made a presentation to a home furnishings group about a week ago out of New Jersey, and a lot of them were believers. I listened to the first day of the conference. A lot of them were believers that they don't think they'll ever get impacted because of things like buying online, picking up in store, the ability to charge free shipping isn't possible. I largely think other than dollar stores, true dollar stores, everyone will be impacted in some way, shape, or form. Long term, I think Costco's got some major problems. I'm very happy to hear that they signed up further partnership with Google Express, but I think everyone and their mother has problems with Amazon. Let's talk about their latest numbers. What's interesting to me is that the U.S. has largely allowed Bezos to correct his wrong in China and focus on India. India has the best demographic profile of any country coming up. It's the second largest. It's going to be the most affluent in terms of the purchasing power of consumers. It is the best market that he can be in. I think he's already said, you know what, I screwed up in China. I've got to do well in India, or we don't have a 20, 30, 40, 50-year plan. And if you look at what they did, 34% sales growth year over year. It's incredible, and you can see the splits. Essentially, it's not stopping. It's not slowing. It's unbelievable. Then when you start to split international, etc., international actually, you can see North America in the white, and international is back in a crazy growth trajectory. They relaunched Prime in Canada, they launched Prime in India, and I think it's going to be the driver of growth for the next couple of decades.
Delivery works in India?
What's that?
Does delivery work in India?
Yeah, so it's very different. So we sell marketplaces. Okay, that's a big one. 4, social media. Okay, and then 5 in-store kiosks and magic meters. None. Okay. I'm not going to tell you why I asked, but I'll start to bring it up throughout the presentation. How many of you guys know this guy? Anybody? It's the CEO of Hilton. He said, we do not believe there is a material impact on the bulk of our markets or our core business and leisure customers. Do you know what he's talking about?
Airbnb.
Good man. Airbnb. In 2017, they're going to do 3x room nights of all legacy hotel companies. You could put Starwood and Marriott and it's still at 2x what they're doing. Now, everyone says, I'm not going to stay with some stranger I don't know. And they realized that. So the first thing they did was they started to try and teach those peer-to-peer rental people how to go about making it more like a hotel. The second thing they did is they said, we're going to come out with a condo in Florida, and we're going to have some sort of hotel. And then the third thing they said is we're not just going to focus on the US, we're going to also do it internationally. This is one of the first major disruptors. The second one, who knows this lady?
Oh, yeah, sure, sure.
She's been in trouble lately. However, what she says here is pretty amazing. 1 in every 5 minutes on a smartphone is spent on a Facebook platform. That's incredible. You start to look at the top 18 iPhone apps, and Google Play looks largely the same, not completely the same, but you're going to start to hone in on what they truly own. They own Facebook Messenger, as we all know. They own Instagram. They bought it for just over $1 billion. Some would say it's worth 75 to 150 billion now. They bought Facebook, obviously. They recently bought TVH, which is, to be honest, and they bought WhatsApp for roughly $19 billion. Additionally, what they've done is they've started to clone Snapchat. We can all tell it's impacting them because they destroyed earnings last night and they showed no real growth. And they also are trying to do Bitmoji. 26% of the world today accesses Facebook. 26%. 2.07 billion people hit it monthly. 1.3 billion, or 65% of those monthlies, hit it daily. Any one of those properties. Who knows this guy?
Oh, yeah.
Uber monster.
Uber monster, yes. However, he did have one statement that was fantastic. Our whole goal is to drive the cost of taking an Uber below the cost of owning a car. This is the guy that's cleaning up all his shit. This is the guy who came from Expedia, Dara, who is, I think, already starting off very, very well. There's a high cost to a bad reputation.